There is a difference between being aware of your unpleasant feelings and simply feeling the unpleasant feelings. When you practice emotional intelligence, you are aware that you are feeling certain feelings. It means that you recognize the feelings and you are also acknowledging that you're feeling it. Now, that's totally different from feeling it and then you just know that I am not comfortable, right? This discussion, I don't like it. There's something about it that I don't like. No. You have to be aware. Means that you have to recognize what you're feeling and you have to acknowledge the feeling. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm particularly excited about this episode because it was inspired. Recently, I had to implement a right sizing strategy in one of my organizations because of the changes happening in the industry. Throughout the entire process, effective communication played a very crucial role in order to ensure that the plans were understood and executed without any form of ambiguity and people's emotions were really managed. What is interesting is that people came to me to ask questions about how I planned and implemented the communication in such lovely way. They wanted to know if emotional intelligence played a crucial role in my strategy of communication, and I thought that would be a very important episode for my YouTube listeners, and that's why we're here today. So sit tight and let us go into the discussion of handling difficult conversations using the skill of emotional intelligence. Every time we talk about the deployment of emotional intelligence competencies in any area of work and life, we are actually talking about blending your thoughts and your emotions and your actions in a way that you are taking optimal decisions. And every time you practice emotional intelligence, you are being aware, you are being intentional, and you are being purposeful. You are being aware, you are being intentional, and you are being purposeful. That is the practice of emotional intelligence. Now, we're talking about handling difficult conversations with emotional intelligence. And the first step in handling difficult conversations with emotional intelligence would be awareness. And so the question here would be, what do you need to be aware of? You can be aware of things that are going on within you about the conversation and things that are going on around you about the conversation. But I think that the biggest level of awareness will be you understanding what difficult conversations are. I can bet that a lot of you find yourself in managing difficult conversations, but you've not been aware of the fact that this is a difficult conversation and you're not aware of the different types of difficult conversations that you have to manage at work. So what are difficult conversations? So difficult conversations are actually conversations that are sensitive, that are delicate, and potentially contentious in nature. These are conversations that deal with challenging issues, conflict, disagreement, unpleasant feedback, not so good news, and the likes. Examples of difficult conversations would be high-level disciplinary actions, unpleasant performance feedbacks, highly heated conflict resolutions, layoffs and terminations, sensitive changes in the organization. And difficult conversations would not be at work alone. They can also be at home about giving feedback to your spouse and addressing changes that are happening in the home. You have to be aware of what difficult conversations are. Now that you are aware of what difficult conversations are, let us come to you and be aware of you in difficult conversations. Why do you dread those difficult conversations? Or why are you excited about this particular difficult conversation? What are your strengths and weaknesses in deploying difficult conversations? What are your preferences and prejudices? What personally do you find difficult in handling difficult conversations? Some people find it difficult because they don't want to damage relationship. Some people cannot manage the potential conflict that might happen after the conversation. Some people, their peace is too much to handle the potential lack of peace that might come after the conversation. Some people are worried about the potential conflict that might happen after the conversation, and some others are worried about the uncertainty of the conversation. For some other people, it is the political and power issues in the organization that is bothering them. For some people, it is the cultural context of the conversation that is making it difficult for them. And for you, would it be rejection? Would it be backlash? Whatever it is important for you to be aware of what you're thinking and the tension that is happening within you regarding this conversation. This awareness is very important as you plan to have difficult conversations. So, how then do you deploy self-awareness in the course of the conversation? One of the things that you must do would be recognizing your emotions in the course of the conversation. You must always check, am I feeling sad? Am I feeling irritated? Am I feeling angry? What am I feeling in the course of the conversation? The more you recognize and acknowledge your feelings in the course of the conversation, the more you will be able to regulate and choose which emotions you want to have in the course of the conversation. You also need to be aware of possible triggers. Triggers are the things that you would hear, the body language that you would see, the expressions that you would notice. It will sweep you off your emotional feet in the course of the conversations. So watch out for the triggers in the course of the conversation. That will be awareness. You also need to be aware of your biases, your own personal bias, before you go into the conversation, so that as the conversation begins, when those biases come up, you can push them back. An example would be, you already have a bias about somebody's work style. You've concluded that the person is lazy. So in the course of the conversation, that idea that you have that the person is lazy can trigger you, especially when the person is beginning to talk about hard work. Imagine that you think somebody is lazy and the person is expressing that they are hardworking. Now that can be a trigger to you. However, that is a bias. When you're going into difficult conversation, you should go there with an open mind. You should also be aware of your non-verbal cues in the course of difficult conversation. What is your face saying? How much are you relaxing into the seat? How serious are you about the conversation? What exactly are your body cues? Are you showing that you don't give a damn about what the person is saying? Is your body language saying that you don't care? You have to be intentional about what you want. So what body language do you want to express in the course of the conversation? And that's why you need to be aware of your body language, your non-verbal communication cues in the course of the difficult conversation. And the last one will be your communication style. You have to be aware of how you are communicating in the course of the conversation. You can't afford to be passive because they will trample over you. You can't also afford to be aggressive because you're going to trample over other people. You want to be assertive. You know what you want. You know what the goal is. You know what you want to achieve from the conversation. You stay there without unnecessary body language, without unnecessary yelling and trampling on people and abusing and insulting. No. You want to focus on the goal. You are in the meeting. You are assertive. You are firm with what you're saying and how you're saying it. And then you're staying on the goal rather than being passive or being aggressive. For me, in this particular conversation, the issue I had with the conversation is the fact that I'm going to be laying some people off. And naturally, I like people to grow. So if I like people to grow and I'm going to be laying people off, where does it align? I had to sit down with myself and conclude with myself, and this is awareness again, that what I am doing is the right thing to do. We have looked at it from every perspective, and it is actually the right thing to do for the organization. And that gave me peace to go into the conversation. Even though I'm feeling sort of pensive, I also have clarity about why I'm feeling pensive. Recognizing and acknowledging the fact that I'm feeling pensive is helping me be aware of what I'm feeling, and then I will be able to move to the next part of emotional intelligence, which is management. So the next time you're going into a difficult conversation, ensure that you are aware of the type of difficult conversation you're about to have. You are aware of the feelings that you are having, and then you are also aware of the reason why you're dreading that conversation. All of this awareness will give you clarity about why you're dragging, and then you'll be able to go to the next stage of practicing emotional intelligence with difficult conversations, and that will be how to manage self-management, intentionality about the conversation. Now that you have a lot of awareness about the difficult conversation you want to have, and you've clarified why you're feeling them and the information around the conversation, it's time to go into self-management, which is the second stage in practicing emotional intelligence. Now, self-management is that particular stage where you are able to see the options that are available to you regarding the conversation. Now, what are the options regarding your body language? What emotions are you supposed to wear in that particular meeting? What are your options with regard to how to start the meeting? What are the options with regard to the words that you want to use? There are several words that you're going to use at different parts of the meeting. Have you sat down to look at that? In self-management, you are looking at the possible options. So options to your body language, options to the words that you will take, options to the structure of the meeting, options to the structure of the conversation in itself. What are your options? When you do this, you are choosing yourself. You are utilizing your capacity to look at the options available to you and to choose which is beneficial for the difficult conversation you want to go and have. You are choosing yourself. You are not allowing the situation and the emotion to overwhelm you. You are not going into the meeting without any form of preparation. You are in charge of yourself rather than to be enslaved by the emotions that you're feeling, the fears, the panic, and all of that associated with a difficult conversation. So you have to choose yourself. Now, how do you deploy self-management in the course of the conversation after you've seen the options available to you? Ensure that in the course of the conversation, you avoid being defensive. We're not here to argue. We're not here to win. We're here to have a conversation. So you don't want to go into argument or heated argument or extended argument. No, you want to stay on course of the conversation and you want to avoid any form of defensive behavior. When people give you feedback that are not pleasant, rather than be defensive, you want to stay on course. Take a deep breath and be calm, and then appropriately respond to whatever feedback it is, whether it is positive or negative, and then stay on course of the conversation. That is you choosing yourself. Another important self-management tool here would be active listening. You're going into a difficult conversation. You have to tell yourself and remind yourself consistently that I have to listen. I have to listen. Every word, every phrase that the person is saying or the people are saying would be important for your thoughts, your thinking, and how you would navigate the conversation. So you want to remind yourself that I'm listening. You want to give a body language of somebody that is listening. That is also you choosing yourself rather than being on auto run in the course of the conversation. I would also advise that you refrain your negative dialogues. In the course of difficult conversation, you would be hearing so many things from within you, like, what the hell is this person saying? What a rubbish. These people are not even grateful. This person doesn't even know the gravity of what he or she has done. All of those statements will be going on in your subconscious. No, you have to continuously refrain. We are discussing. They are expressing. I am listening. There is a goal to be achieved with this conversation. The more you reframe all your negative dialogue, the more you are able to concentrate on the discussion, and you'll be, no matter how difficult the conversation would be, you're in charge of yourself and you would be together. Now we've gone through your awareness about the difficult conversation. We've also gone through the capacity to see options, which is self-management. And the last one is self-direction. Now, self-direction would usually start with empathy. And empathy means putting yourself in the shoes of the person you want to go and have a difficult conversation with. Now, this is a strategy. It is a strategy to help you decide how to deploy the conversation. Put yourself in the shoes of the person. If it is a termination discussion, how would you like to hear about your own termination? Would it be on the phone? Would it be face-to-face? How would you like to start such a discussion? If it's a discussion about performance review, especially an unpleasant performance feedback, how would you like to hear your own unpleasant performance feedback? When you deploy empathy, you are being open and being non-judgmental about the other person's reaction, and in this case, possible reaction to what you want to say. And so that openness and non-judgmental stage would help you understand them, and it will help you connect better in communicating that particular information to them. When you do this, it helps you to connect and respond in appropriate ways. And so when you practice empathy, you are able to see the possible options and appropriate ones in deploying the conversation that you want to have. The other part of self-direction would be you identifying what matters the most in the discussion. What matters the most? If you constantly focus on what matters the most, called self-direction, purposefulness about the conversation, you'll be well guided about the choices available to you and what you should choose to do. For me, in this situation, I looked at my options, and in self-management, I decided to choose the options that would make everybody feel cheerful and calm in the meeting. I chose to start the meeting with some level of jest, with the people I was speaking to. I asked beautiful questions about their life. I talked about the beautiful things that we've had in the course of the year and how we've grown. I also talked about the challenges that we've had in the course of the year. And everybody was relaxed. And then I let them know the reason for the meeting and why, especially why we are deploying such right sizing. I also gave them confidence about the fact that we will do this objectively and the organization will definitely be fair to everybody who would be leaving. Part of what I try to do as a person is if I make a promise, I would fulfill it. And that has created a good background for the conversation anyways. And so the next time you're going to have a difficult conversation, whatever type of conversation it will be, ensure that you get into awareness of what is happening within you and around you about the conversation, awareness of what your fears are, awareness of what your biases and preferences and prejudices are about the conversation, and then go into the self-management part, which is seeing the options that are available to you, and then using the self-direction part, empathetically choose the options that are optimal for the decision, and most importantly, focus on what's most important. Now, when you do this, irrespective of what happens in the meeting, you will be together because you have taken charge of yourself even before the meeting. So self-awareness, self-management, and self-direction, they are always three important tools that you can use in practicing emotional intelligence in any area of life. And for today, we have plugged it into difficult decisions. So the next time you're going to have a difficult decision, remember to be aware of what is going on within you and around you about the conversation. Ensure that you see the options that are available to you about the conversations and be guided with empathy and what is most important about the conversations. So if you have any question or you have comments about this conversation, please put them in the comment section and I'll be excited to engage you there.